Welcome to our Return to Study short course for our next week. So tonight, just the agenda, we're going to be looking at technology and how it facilitates learning and how important it is for you as a student returning to study to actually embrace that and really take it on board. We're going to have a look at a demo of the CSU Online Learning Environment, which is called Interact 2, and it's based on Blackboard technology. We'll look at some other electronic devices that are commonly used by people that are going to really help you with your study that you may not have. You use them every day, but you may not have thought about them in an educational context. We'll talk about forums and peer-supported learning. Particularly forums are a really undervalued and underrated component of learning, particularly from the student side, in my experience, but they're things that it's a sort of thing that if you embrace it, it can really help you to build networks, to build study groups, and to get access to information that you may not, get through your normal channels you may miss. And then a little bit about mentors and lecturers at the different universities and how they may be able to help you using offline, online or electronic means. So embracing technology. Technology is a very important educational tool and one that is widely distributed and widely used amongst all tertiary institutions. The vast majority of tertiary institutions everywhere in the world will provide some sort of blended learning solution. Sure, you still have classes that you need to attend, still have lectures that you need to attend in some cases, you still have tutorials that you need to attend in some cases. But they will generally offer you some sort of online capability to also enhance your learning. So included in that may be recordings of lectures so you can go back and look at them again. There may be small online tasks, there may be forum tasks, there could be online tests which could involve simple multiple choice, they could involve graphical tasks. There can be little vignettes that people put up, so they'll record a certain piece of the curriculum, which they may not necessarily cover in any depth in a lecture, for example, or they may record some little vignettes or give you some YouTube videos which will support what you've been learning in your actual classes. Of course, if we talk about off-campus studies where you are a complete remote student and you don't have to attend campus at all, then all your learning is going to be online. So it's important that you embrace the different uses of technology that are offered and understand them. Not only will it facilitate obviously your learning in that particular course, but then later on down the track, once you get into employment, there's expectations, which I think is one of the expectations from employers that you understand technology that's related to your field. Technology drives all businesses and careers now, so it would be pretty difficult to find a career path, particularly that is underpinned by tertiary education, that doesn't have technology as a cornerstone of it, as a cornerstone pillar of that particular career. It might not necessarily be something that you're using all the time in all aspects of your job, but you will be required to use computer systems, you will be required to use database systems, you'll be required to use certain electronic gadgets depending on your line of work, or different specialised tools which are technology driven. So you need to be able to understand the basic principles and premises and find your way around it. You don't have to be an expert unless you're going into the IT field, obviously there. You don't have to be an expert on the technology necessarily, although in some cases, say for instance, if you're wanting to be an exercise physiologist, for example, you would need to be an expert in how to use an ECG machine. Okay, that's technology, that's a piece of technology that's important to that field. So you need to be able to embrace that and learn that technology. So don't be afraid of it. They're enablers that you need to learn to deal with. So how might you use it as a student, I guess, is a really important question for you to ask yourself. And I've got some thoughts there that are non-exhaustive, and you may be able to come up with others, but think about how you, as we go through this session tonight, how you would use that technology in your own context. But certainly for note-taking, it's a common thing. I've seen people use iPads and other sort of tablet systems to take notes, or laptops to watch lectures that are either recorded prior or during the actual lecture, you go back and look at those. Accessing different resources, particularly library resources, so your LibGuides, online databases for your research, and again, things like Interact 2, which we'll have a look at shortly, or other learning management systems, LMS. Communication with peers and staff, I mean, that's something we do all the time, simply just through email. That's technology that you need to get grips with if you don't. Research is obviously one, as I said, using library resources, but also using your own access to other online databases, or as we were talking about last week and the week before, sources of information, whether that be Wikipedia or industry-based sources or a newspaper or magazines or whatever the case may be. Technology will enable you to more quickly and easily get access to a vast amount of information. So previously, when we've had to go through, Encyclopedia Britannica or go through textbooks, that takes a long time to do. If you buy textbooks in a PDF or an ebook format and you have them on iPad or some other tablet or your laptop, much easier to search through, much easier to scan, much easier to make highlights. It's all in the one spot, really quickly, easily accessible, rather than having to flick backwards and forwards with the book. And I know, personally, I like to have a hard copy at times, but certainly, it's great to be able to carry around an iPad or some other tablet or a laptop that's got all your textbooks on it, all your notes for the year, all your learning resources in the one spot to be able to look at whenever you want. So your technology is going to help you find services and assistance, and we'll have a look at that later on this evening. You may be able to book meeting rooms or book resources, so things like projector systems, video conferencing systems. All these are potentially at your disposal as a student. You need to be able to learn how to use them and how to be, as I said before, not an expert in them, but at least understand the underlying technology and know how to kick things off and use them at a basic level. And what else? That's a question for you guys. What other things would you potentially use technology for? So keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through the next little bit. So we'll go through a run through of the CSU Online Environment. As I said before, it's based on Blackboard. I'll do a demo and walk through in a minute. There's also this helpful link here. If you're not a Charles Sturt Uni student, it doesn't matter whether you are or not, you'll still get access to that link there. It'll give you an idea of what their online learning system is about. And even though it's branded Charles Sturt Uni, as you'll see in a minute, many other unis have very, very similar online learning systems, and even though the theme of them, the look of them is a little different, obviously, because they're branded in their own colours, so to speak, they're all reasonably similar. Okay, so if we switch to Interact, so this is the, as it says, a gateway to Charles Sturt Uni. So this is the Interact portal. You obviously require a username and password, which you'll get as an enrolled student. Okay, just need to reload that page. Now what you'll see, my browser's decided to have a heart attack, just bear with me for a second. There we go. What you'll see here is initially is a little bit different because I'm a mentor. I get a little bit more access than what the average student will do, but I'll just pop it into student mode. Okay, so just bear with me while it loads. So this initial page that loads once you log in is your basic desktop. Okay, this is where you manage everything that's relevant to you from. So we have announcements over here. Announcements are made by the lecturers or mentors, and they will be sent. They can be sent directly to your email as well, your student email or other registered email. But they will pop up there, and they're for giving you information that you need to digest quickly. You need to get quickly about any aspect of a particular subject, and I'll show you a couple of examples of announcements that I've sent out in the subjects that I'm mentoring. Staff links, obviously as a student you're not going to see those, but you'll see something similar with your student links, alerts on different things down the right-hand page. The main thing that's really important to just get a grip on for a start is just your courses. So you can see here that that's last session. This session here, these are the two subjects that I'm mentoring. So if I were to click on one of those, and this will appear similarly for you, you will still get that particular subject if you're involved in that subject or whatever your subject is. And then clicking on that link, we'll just turn that off. Okay, so this here is the front page for the particular subject, and on that you can see home page gives you a little bit of a welcome, gives you some basic information about the subject, the courseware, about, in this case, me. Okay, so that's me. A little bit of information about your lecturer or mentor. Importantly, these down the left-hand side is basically the menu which drives your subject. Okay, so on that left-hand side you have the home, which is this here. You have a subject outline, which will come up and then it pops up into a new window, and your subject outline contains all the information that you need to know about your particular subject. So all aspects of, and as soon as I say that, that one didn't work. Try that again. Here we are, we're talking about technology, and technology is wonderful when it works. But sure, it works vast majority of the time. Here we go. Probably my browser debaying more than anything. So this gives you all the information that you need about this particular subject. You can see down the left-hand side, we can expand by clicking the plus. So we have a subject overview, which gives you basic information about the subject and the learning outcomes. So these are the outcomes that you can expect to learn about as the session progresses. These are basically the final objectives for the subject, what you need to know by the end of it. There is details on your lecturer, who in this case would be me. There is some learning, teaching and support strategies. So this is basically telling you what the class times are and where they're run from. This particular class is completely online, so it's just merely advertising the fact that the webinars are on Monday evenings from 7 p.m. If you need to contact your lecturer, here is the details. Student administration, the lovely people at Student Admin who can help you with all aspects of your subject administration. That's their contact details there. How you're expected to engage with the subject, so it gives you, it's setting the foundation for you. It's setting the expectations that the university and me as a mentor would expect you to actually do to complete the subject successfully. So read through the subject homepage, which we were just at. So that's back here. And check for announcements. Okay, most mentors will send out, when they set an announcement, they'll enable it to email directly to your registered email account as well. I certainly do, so you'll get that anyway, but good idea to check Interact all the time as well. Look at your weekly learning materials, which I'll show in a minute. Attend the weekly online tutorial, which is the webinar session that we run, and then be involved in the discussion forums. Okay, and then there are other information about other activities that can help your learning, and then expectations about your workload in the subject. So you can see it's quite information rich. We have our text and learning materials, so under there that will detail for you any text and other learning materials that you may be prescribed or sent out. Now, most of the time, if you're studying on campus, you'll need to source it yourself, or you'll be able to get assistance through student services if you're not sure about that, or through your lecturer as a first point of call to decide what materials you're going to need. They'll be able to tell you about that, your learning guide. And if you're off campus, then particularly through IT Masters, if you're to do this subject, these textbooks are sent out to you by mail. or I should say most of them now are now ebooks. So you'll get them emailed to you or codes emailed to you. You can download them and then use them at your leisure. Schedule a breakdown of the session in question. So this is relevant for this particular session we're in now, and it will give you your reading topics for each week, when your assignments are due, when the census dates are, when the public holidays are, when your exams will fall, so on and so forth. Now, that's a quick reference guide, and it's a good idea to keep an eye on that all the time. In terms of your exams, the staff at IT Masters Admin in this case, or other academic staff, will send you notification of when your exams may be. The exam timetables are also on the university website. It's obviously your responsibility to make sure that you turn up to the right place at the right time. We have some assessment information, so a little introduction blurb there, and then we have our specific assessment items. So in here we list the 3 different assessments. So in this case, this particular subject, we have an online test in week 4, which is worth 15%, tells you how long it is, gives you the aim of what the test is, so why are we running the test, what's the importance of it, and give you an idea of how your exam or your online test will be marked. So you're fully aware of A, the requirements of the assessment, but B, also how it's going to be marked and how it's going to be returned to you. Assessment 2 in this case is a 4,000 word essay. It gives you a bit of a breakdown on, so it gives you the underlying premise of the essay, what you have to do, some examples or primary ideas that you might like to consider if you were to write that essay. And incidentally, this was the essay that Chantelle broke down last week. Also the rationale, so why are you writing this assessment? What is it designed to do? And then the marking criteria as well. Okay, so how many marks are going to be allocated for each section, and then in the rubric it details what is expected of a student. So what are you expected to deliver for each section of your essay for each of these marks, ranging from a fail to a pass, a credit, a distinction and a high distinction. And then assessment 3, basically an exam. It'll detail its closed book, it's proctored, your time, the date will be advised, in this case via email for our students, and then a little bit of information about the content of the exam and the process you need to go through, also the materials you can take to the exam. So that's a really important part about the subject outline. So if we just flick back to here, announcements are also important. So this is where we were saying before, it's important that you check your announcements regularly. And again, here's some announcements that I've posted for my students in this particular subject at different times. As I said, I automatically set them to email out to you as well, so you don't always have to look at the announcement board, but it's a good idea to keep in the loop with things. Now, the other areas that are really important, which we were talking about before, the discussions, used to be called, was called something else, I can't remember what it was called before that, but basically it's your forums, so your discussion boards.
Just the forums.
It was just forums, well, that's saying Chantelle.
Yeah.
So what I do, and look, this is not necessarily the same for all mentors or lecturers, what I do is I have a main subject forum for each subject, which is basically run by the students. So you guys get to post on that backwards and forwards. I monitor it and make sure that everything's above board, and I will answer or steer conversations in a certain direction if required, but otherwise that's available for you guys to interact. And it's a really important thing that you do in order to be able to, particularly if you're a remote student, it can be really difficult. Some of us are good at being self-starters and studying on our own, and others like that social interaction, and this is where the forums are really important that you engage in that. Some subjects are not so good, and it also depends on the size of your cohort that you're involved in too. So if you've only got 20 students in a subject, you'll get less interaction than you will obviously if you had a couple of hundred. So bear that in mind as well, but very important. I also put up forums for each of the assessments so that people can, so if you've got a question, you can post to there's a specific forum that you can post to that you know I'll be watching, but also so that if you do post there into that forum, all the other students are able to then view that question as well, because a lot of people may have the same question but they're not game to ask, or they don't want to engage in the forum. So it's there for everybody to see as well. That's why it's important that they're categorized. And obviously once, if we're coming up to the short answer test, I'll be looking at that particular forum. I look at the assessment 2 or the essay forum all the time, because there can be questions coming up right from the first day when you get access to the assignment assessment sheet. And the exam, I start to look at that as we get closer to the exam. So we're in that sort of period now. And you can see there's a little bit of interaction on these ones. These aren't too bad. General questions is just anything that's not related to the assessments or student discussion, so something that you want to ask me directly. Now normally I would say to people, general questions is for anything that you want to ask me about the subject or the content that is not personal. Okay, so if you've got personal issues or you want extensions or those sorts of things, then you would email me directly for those. But the discussion boards are a really, I can't overemphasize how important they are in helping you to learn. There's been numerous research studies, certainly 3 or 4 that I'm aware of, and some I've been involved with La Trobe University, that show that students who engage in forums actively can often raise their final result by a letter grade at the end of the semester. So you'll get much more benefit out of engaging than even if you just read through them. Or if you don't look at them all, you won't get any benefit, obviously. If you read through them, there's an insignificant or non-significant, more correctly, advantage. Engaging in them, there is a really significant advantage and really worthwhile getting into. All right, in terms of the other resources, under the resources link is where all the content for all the online content for your subject will be kept. So one of the things I do is I provide a folder that's got information on referencing. This is a really important skill to master, and again it involves quite a bit of technology. And under here I put a number of resources that are freely available for Charles Sturt Uni. So these are the only thing that I've done myself with this reference webinar, and this is basically showing people the importance of referencing and how to do it using the APA or American Psychological Association version of formatting. There are a number of different standards of formatting, as Chantelle spoke about last week, and which one you use will be dependent on the course you're using and maybe sometimes on the actual lecturer. Charles Sturt Uni, I believe their policy still is that they will accept any referencing standard as long as you use it correctly. However, some lecturers will specify, I specify APA 6. It's generally the most widely used one and one of the more easy ones to get your head around. And there's also some good technological tools. One of them is EndNote, which you can download, software you can download, and that will integrate into your most word processors and allow you to insert your references, your in-text citations, and it will automatically format your reference list and everything else for you. So needs a little bit of configuring, but it generally works pretty well. Folder for assessments is clearly where all the information for the assessments is that I can give them. So assessment 1, there's that blurb on the student on the subject outline here. Not that one, assessment item, sorry. So in here there's a little bit of information on that. Not really much you can say about an online test. Assessment 2, the forensic essay. So this is basically the case study or the topic question that we spoke about last week. And then practice exam, there's a practice exam there as well. And this is an example of what I do, but most other lecturers or mentors do very similar things. Under the webinar slide and recording, under here is a folder for each topic. Okay, and under each topic there is a PDF copy of the slides that are available for that are used for that particular webinar or subject, similar to what you're getting through the MOOC here, and also obviously the recording of the webinar, which is similar to what you guys see either through the YouTube link or you can download it through Moodle. And that's pretty much the standard operating environment. There are times when other resources such as web links or YouTube videos, they can be put up here as well. Any sort of resource can be put up here. Generally, I insert them into the webinars and let people decide to use those, or I'll post them on the forum so they're available for everyone easily. It's important that you understand that irrespective, it doesn't matter which university you go to, it's important that you work your way around their LMS, whatever it is, or their Blackboard system, or their Moodle system, whatever it is that they're using. It's important that you know, and although this is a demonstration for Interact 2, most of the features are pretty similar. There's also some information about each assessment, so when it's due, and how to actually submit that. So it's an online test in this case, so I click on that. Assessment 2 is the essay for this particular subject, and it gives you information about good places to start your research, so the library, study skills, writing at uni. It gives you basically, this is the content of the essay file that's under resources, the marking criteria and the rubric, again, as from the subject outline. Okay, so it gives you all the information that you require for that particular assessment. EAST is the engine by which students will return their assignments, so their essays, their case studies, any sort of usually assessment 2, longer assessments that you might be doing. I assessed it through that. So I won't go through a demo of that. You also have access to my grades, which there's nothing in there for me, so I can't really show you that. The next important thing is the weekly learning topics. So these are developed by the mentor or lecturer in question generally, and each one of these is relating directly to the topics and learning objectives for that particular week. So topic 1 aligns with week 1, so on and so forth. Bearing in mind there is also a 2-week break in the middle of a session in our case, so that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Often it's just a simple little bit of information, but they are important because particularly for these ones here, what we call our questions to ponder, they're useful because they assist you with exam preparation. That's what they're designed to do. So they are not going to be, these questions may not be replicated on the exam, you would hope not, but the general driving idea is to give you some questions to facilitate some deeper thinking on the topic subject matter that you've looked at for that particular week. So I always point my students to this particular set of questions when they're doing exam revision. It's mentioned all the way through, but sometimes the message doesn't get through. Okay, so topic 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So they all follow the same basic format. Depending on which university you go to, some of them are set up a little bit differently, but it's all reasonably similar. They'll give you overall information about the subject, your assessment details, your actual learning content, and then an area which may actually be your online assessments or how to submit, and also contact numbers on where to go if you get into trouble or you have any issues. So that's a brief rundown of Interact 2. So I might, if you've got any questions about it, just pop them up as we go along, as I go into the next couple of slides, and I'll come back to them. I'll just leave that open in the background. Okay, so as I said before, there's other devices that are going to help you, and these are reasonably obvious, and I'm sure the vast majority of you will have these. So we're talking about PCs and laptops. Now, presumably you're all using one of those to look at this webinar, to join this webinar right now. Obviously, that's a piece of technology that you're going to have to be familiar with. Also, you need to be familiar with the software that you may be using for your particular course. So generally that will be a word processor of some description. You may also need to have a spreadsheet of some description, so it might be Word and Excel, for example. You'll obviously need email, access to email, so student email. You may use an Outlook client or some other thin client, or you may use a thick client, or you may use a web browser to access your student mail. You'll need to use a web browser to access your online learning environment. You could also potentially need to have access to some sort of statistics package like SPSS, for example. So all those sorts of things are pieces of technology that you need to come to grips with. As I said before, there may be other things in your particular course. So if, for instance, you're doing a nursing course, there is numerous machines that you'll need to, or numerous pieces of technology that you'll need to become familiar with. So you've got machines for measuring blood pressure, glucose, lactate levels, now all sorts of things. You've got different you will need to become familiar with technology or piece of technology that allow you to draw blood, for example, or analyze blood. And it's all dependent on the course that you're doing. If you're in exercise science, you will learn how to use a machine which measures oxygen consumption in humans during exercise. So again, a fundamental piece of technology that you need to be familiar with. So it's not always just about PCs and laptops and how they help your learning. It's also technology that's going to help you to do your job later on once you get past that learning. Tablets, so iPad, Samsung tablets, similar to a PC laptop really. Could be, depending on how much memory and resource power it's got, can be used in a very similar way to PCs or laptops. Smartphones are obviously prevalent, highly prevalent today. Most people have them. Not much different from a tablet really, just smaller. If you can, if your eyesight's good enough to use them, good luck to you. But they will provide you access to lots of different things that you may need to use at different times. Things like webinar, which is what we're looking at now, GoToWebinar. Okay, and there's many flavors of that. So there was another one I was using today. What's it called? Zoom. Zoom, for instance, is another offering that facilitates video conferencing. There's Tandberg systems, there's Cisco-based systems, lots of different conferencing systems that allow students to connect some way remotely or dial in remotely and access content that way. So there's lots of different things. Peer-supported learning, there's a couple of components to this. Firstly, there is actually learning from the students within your cohort. I know, and this is one thing that's a real challenge for people that are online students doing online courses. If you're doing a course that's based on campus, it's much easier to have that face-to-face contact. You get to know people around you over, your 3-4 years of your course. And after that initial introduction period, you can start bouncing ideas off each other, generate conversation, and start to learn from each other. That's much more difficult in online environments. Definitely not impossible. There's plenty of resources available for you to do that, particularly our forums. As we looked at, social media, you can form study groups, you can use Skype, library peer advisors. There's lots of different online components that you can use to facilitate that peer-supported learning. Some campuses or some universities will also have what they call peer advisors, so and generally, as it says there, library peer advisors, and they are students who have been at the university for quite some time, so they may be 3rd or 4th year students or potentially postgraduate, maybe PhD or master students. And occasionally, as part of their role, particularly PhD students, as part of their candidature, they will be asked to sit in the library and assist students in finding their way around campus, finding their way around resources, finding the right person to talk to, helping them with their research, helping them find other resources, their learning materials, all those sorts of things. And they're also really useful to use as well if you can. Obviously, if you're a fully offline student, off-campus student, not offline, off-campus student, that's going to be more difficult, but there are the ability to chat to these people online as well. The forums in particular, as I said before, are very underutilised, and it's unfortunate because some great learning can occur through that, and as I said before, can really help you improve your grades. Social media, I think everyone uses that now. One of the cohorts that I was involved in recently was big on using Facebook groups to do that, to interact with each other and share information. Didn't work for me so good because I'm still resisting the urge to have Facebook, but I found out through other means. Study groups, obviously they don't have to be online study groups, they can be in real life as well, don't have to be online, but online study groups are a really good way to, particularly as an off-campus student, get involved, get that peer social contact, see where everyone else is and see, you know, maybe what you can learn off them. So Skype, just another form of video conferencing, and there's plenty of those as well. So the teaching staff are also very, very helpful, you would hope. Well, of course we are. But nowadays, particularly off-campus courses and people who do webinars online, like I do, often work out of the office. So I don't have an office at Charles Sturt Uni, even though I'm associated with an organisation that delivers master's courses for them. I simply work from home, as I am now. So you know, we don't necessarily have an office. We're freelance. We're anywhere. We could be anywhere. I could be giving a lecture from the other side of the planet, and it wouldn't matter as long as we've got that technology enablement. In general, the best way, and even for on-campus staff, I think often the best way is to email them directly or use the forums as your primary contact method. And certainly for students that I interact with, that's pretty much the only way, unless they happen to live in the same town as I do, and I think I've had about 2 in the quite a few years I've been involved with it. So the email to forums is the best contact method. It's generally something that we check all the time. That's what we're paid to check that all the time. We're paid to keep an eye on that and monitor it, and it's the best way. Maybe an office if we have one. If they have one, again, that's going to be dependent on the university and the course that you're doing, and whether you're off campus fully or whether you're on campus. Some lecturers will provide their mobile numbers, but that's not something that I would expect them to do. That's purely a personal choice. I don't, but I know other lecturers that certainly do. But in any case, you can always ring either the office number, or in the case with IT Masters, you can ring their number directly, and they will pass on any messages or let you know how to get in contact with me if it's sufficiently urgent. And again, I'm using myself as an example, but this is applicable across all universities and all courses. So the role of the teaching staff is to guide you when you need help. So it's not our role to give you the answers or, you know, draw out the dot points for you explicitly and you just follow the trail of breadcrumbs. But it is our role to guide you, to help you out. And remember that teaching staff are not always the definitive resource, even though they may be teaching the subject. Okay, yes, they may have a better knowledge than what you've got as a student, but that doesn't mean they are the preeminent expert on the planet. So there's going to be limits to the things that they'll be able to answer as well. And the expectation that you should have of them is that if they can't answer, they'll know where to point you in the right direction, or provide you with resources that will allow you to answer the question for yourself. But overall, the role is to guide, to mentor, to nurture, to facilitate learning of your own. There was a quote I heard, I think I may have used it at some stage, about you know, if the basic premise is, if I give you some knowledge, if I give you a thought, then it's not your thought, you may or may not remember it. But if I facilitate you having a thought of your own, initiating a thought, then you're much more likely to remember it. So the idea is, we don't hand you everything on a platter, but we guide you down the track. And it's your responsibility to ask for help if you need it. So use these technological resources at your disposal to be able to ask the questions that you need to ask. If you're not sure, ask. There are no dumb questions. anything is fair game to be asked. If you need feedback on an assessment, or you're not sure about where to go with an assessment, or you want a review, then by all means ask it. I've had students ask me plenty of times, not sure of the direction of their assessment, can I have a look at it before they submit it and just give them some basic pointers? And that's fine to be able to do that. Most people, most lecturers and mentors will do that for you. You're certainly not going to get in-depth analysis on it. That's unfair to the other students, but certainly there is some room to give you some assistance as required, because ultimately we want you to pass, we want you to be successful in your studies and therefore successful in your career, whatever that may be. But remember that ultimately it's your responsibility to ask for help, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you are comfortable with and know how to use any technology that is required for your course, and that you know your way around your learning management systems, you know where to find help, which we'll be talking about next week, specifically the different areas that you can go to find help, both online or if you're on campus, and a lot of the other questions that you may have about courses and submitting forms and requirements and all sorts of things. Okay, but we'll look at that next week. Okay, so looks like we've gone a little bit over time potentially, so I apologise for that. But that's basically it for what I wanted to discuss tonight. If you've got any questions, filter them through. I'll be around, I'll hang around for the next 10 or so minutes if you've got any questions. But if you don't have any questions, you are certainly free to go. Yeah, okay, so thanks very much for your attendance. The webinar this particular recording will be up on Moodle sometime tomorrow. So yeah, thank you for your attendance. If you have any questions, pop them through now. Thanks.
Matt, one of the things that I was reminded of when listening to you talk about using different technologies, and I'm just going to say this while people pop in any questions they have, was that we always forget that we automatically use things the way we were taught, and sometimes we forget to think of different ways we can look into it. So when I've been studying, I find that I study really well auditory, just listening to things, and but I need to have something to keep a little bit of my attention while I do it. So one of the things that I've discovered is I convert a lot of my readings into speech, which you can do online. There's a few programs to use it, and I mean they're a bit computerized, but they're still there. And then while I read along with it, and I can either take notes or I can, knit, because I'm a little old lady sometimes, but do something to keep my attention, but to still make sure I'm moving along listening to it. Instead of, whenever I try and read a textbook, I always get a little bit distracted and lost, and then I realize that I've just been on the same paragraph for about 15 minutes. So yeah, think about different ways you could use technology in an interesting way rather than just the same old, same old.
Yeah, thanks, Chantelle. That's a really excellent point. And it also goes back to, we were talking before about blended learning. So as I said, a lot of these online systems, you will have access to things like PDFs or web links that might go off to a text page or a journal article, or they might go off to a YouTube video. And often courses that are written well will certainly have a lot of overlap in those resources, and that's to cater for those different types of learning styles. So it's a really good point Chantelle makes, and we hark back to what we did the other week with VARC in week 2, the VARC learning model, that it's important that you understand what your preferred learning style is, and that you drive your use of technology using that. So yeah, thanks Chantelle, great point. Okay guys, there's no questions here at the moment, so we'll hold on for a couple of more minutes. So if you've got any questions, don't be frightened to ask. Pop them in and we'll answer them as best we can. Okay everyone, doesn't appear to be any questions from this evening, so that's great. If you think of anything afterwards, by all means post them onto the forum on Moodle, and we'll be able to answer those for you. But otherwise, That's it for this evening, so we'll see you same time next week. Thanks very much for your attendance. Bye for now.